everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Dr. Julianne McKelvin. I am a midwife and midwifery senior lecturer, and it is lovely to have you here. So this channel is completely dedicated to student midwives and other healthcare professional students to help you bloom throughout your journey at university. So I hope you can join me and subscribe to this channel to help make it grow. So today I'm going to be focusing on one particular topic which I have come across as sometimes being a potential problem for students. And this is how to structure paragraphs, how to make your paragraphs coherent, to make sure that the message which you're trying to put across is crystal clear for the reader. I have seen many students, and I think this was something which I've seen in myself as well as a student midwife, where the message I try to put across is sometimes jumbled up, unclear, and then the reader just doesn't quite understand what I'm trying to say. So through this particular video, I'm going to give you a few short tips to help you overcome that challenge and make sure that your paragraphs are clear and that your message is well understood. I hope you enjoyed and find it useful. So let's get started. Before we get into what is required for every paragraph, we need to remind ourselves that every essay or assessment or any other piece of work must always have a key point, an overarching point, a key focus, which the entire essay or assessment wants to put forward. This is basically the key argument which you want to explain, discuss, analyze, which basically you want to conclude with. So basically, what is the key overarching point that your entire piece of work wants to present? Because then each paragraph needs to make an element of contribution to this overarching point. So basically, the combination of paragraphs will make sure that this overarching key point is presented clearly. Each paragraph is helping to explain and develop this key overarching point. So that is one thing which you need to keep in mind when planning your overall essay. When it comes then to the paragraphs themselves, each paragraph must also have a key point or key idea which you need to focus on. So basically try remembering, when you're planning your essay or your assessment and you have all these ideas which you want to present, and then obviously, as we sometimes have said before, you will not be able to discuss in detail each idea which you have. So you need to pick and choose which ideas you do have. So it's always wise that the ideas which you choose to develop in every paragraph, you make sure that each of these ideas is providing something of value towards the overarching key points. So you don't have ideas written down just for the sake of them, but they have to be contributing something of value to that overarching point. So the ideas within each paragraph must link with each other and also with this overarching key point which we've been mentioning. So then, what is the secret to success in terms of these paragraphs? I have marked lots of work, I have written lots of work, where sometimes the key argument, both from an overall perspective, so both the overarching point and the key ideas or the key points within each paragraph are sometimes lost. And even though students make use of great evidence to help them develop their argument, Because of the way that the paragraphs or the whole essay is structured, sometimes that argument is lost. So, some of the secret to success is that while the whole work needs to be unified, well developed, and coherent, equally, each paragraph must also be unified, well developed, and coherent. And basically, each paragraph needs to build upon the previous paragraph to enable this. And we will look at these concepts of being unified, well developed, and coherent separately and closely next. So, as we said, every paragraph must have a key point. And this is the key idea, the key message which you want to present in the paragraph. Now, the section point of this paragraph is normally introduced at the start of the paragraph. But sometimes, if you are planning on presenting two sides of an argument, the section point can sometimes be somewhere in the middle of the paragraph. And equally, sometimes when you want to present a convincing argument, you may want to first build the information and then end the paragraph with the key argument, the key point of the paragraph which you wanted to present. So there are means and ways of how the key point is presented. However, every paragraph must always have a key point. So this brings me to discussing very briefly the length of a paragraph. Normally, you will never see a paragraph which is only one sentence. This is not appropriate. Sometimes, when you have very short paragraphs, which are about 2 to 3 sentences, this tends to suggest that the idea which you have presented isn't well developed. So it should be looked at to try to develop it further, or see whether actually the next paragraph is actually talking about the same thing and you need to combine those paragraphs. Sometimes you will also see some paragraphs having over 8, 9 sentences. This also normally suggests that the idea isn't well developed, that the message may have been lost, or that you are discussing things which are not related to the key point. So, once again, these kind of paragraphs need to be revised and see whether you need to separate and divide this long paragraph into two smaller paragraphs. So, normally, a good paragraph length will sit somewhere between those 4 to 8 sentences. So, the next thing which I want to discuss is how to make sure that a paragraph is unified. And this is very simple. So, basically, tends to be achieved when you're writing your first draft. And what you need to make sure is that the sentences are contributing to that key section point. So we said that each paragraph is going to have a key idea, and you need to make sure that every sentence is contributing something of value to this key idea which you want to present in the paragraph. If it's not providing anything of value, then it probably means that that sentence should not be there in the first place. The next thing which we need to make sure is that the paragraph is well developed. And this basically means that each sentence needs to explain or defend the main idea of that paragraph. And that's why earlier I said that each sentence needs to contribute something of value. And that lends itself to being well developed. So each sentence, basically, when you're presenting the information, you need to present information that can convince your reader that the main point which you're presenting is accurate or reasonable enough. And also highlighting to the reader, why the information which you're providing is important. So there are a few techniques which you can use to help you make your point well developed. And this sometimes also depends on the task which you're given. So whether you need to analyze, whether you need to appraise, whether you need to debate. So different techniques will lend themselves, more appropriate to different types of essays. But generally, when you're telling a story, this helps ideas to be well developed. So you're providing sufficient information for the reader to understand what is actually happening. It is also useful to provide examples to sustain you, to explain, to defend your argument. You need to also ideally present the information in a structured manner in terms of how it is sequenced, especially when you're explaining something or discussing something. You need to consider whether a timeline may help the reader understand better what's happening. Consider providing definitions if appropriate. Consider providing comparisons and any contrasts which are in place using evidence. And consider breaking down the concept, your idea, into multiple facets, because this is what will help aid your analysis, especially if you're studying in your second year or level 5. And also consider highlighting any cause or effects as well. And all these features will help you develop your idea in further detail. So it's a very good thing to keep in mind that every sentence needs to be in place for a purpose, for a reason that helps you explain or defend the main idea of that paragraph. And finally, the next thing which you need to consider is how to achieve coherence in any paragraph. So basically, your sentences should follow a logical order. And this is sometimes thought about, not normally in the first draft, but confirmed in subsequent drafts. So, how can we achieve coherence? Making sure that we present these by time, if there is a time order into how we're presenting our ideas. Presenting sentences by importance, or normally from a general point to a section point, or from more specific points to the generic point, especially if we are developing that argument. So basically, this means how do you want to present your information? Do you want to start off by being very generic and then focus on the more details using your evidence, or do you want to do it the other way around? Another way to help you with coherence is to use continuation and repetitive words to show that you are still talking about the same thing, such as using the same pronouns or same subjects when you're talking, when you're using them in your sentences. Use transition words as well to establish logistical relationships between the sentences which you are using. So, for example, to show addition, you will use words such as also or again. To show similarity, you can use terms like likewise, in the same way, or similarly. To show exception in your arguments, you can use terms such as however or nevertheless. And sometimes you might need to emphasize a point. So you can use terms such as indeed or in fact. And other times you may want to show a cause and effect. And so you might use terms such as consequently or thus. So these terms, which link different sentences together, will add a lot of value and coherence to any piece of work which you are working on. So basically, those are the three things which really help a paragraph, making sure that it's well structured so that the key point is well established and it can be understood clearly. Right, so let me walk you through an example. So I have a paragraph prepared. I'll give you some time to read through the paragraph, and then I'll break it down and explain why I've included each sentence and why I included it in that particular way to meet the needs of the paragraph structure and what essential features we've already discussed. So here is the paragraph, and I'll give you some time to read this. I have a paragraph here about positive birth experiences and the concept of control during labor. So I started off the paragraph by highlighting that it has been well documented that supporting women and ensuring they are in control during labor leads to positive birth experiences, which is cited with the author and the year. So I wanted to put together this sentence because I wanted to introduce the topic. And this is a good skill to have in that whenever you have a new paragraph, you're introducing the topic and giving the reader an idea of what this paragraph is going to be. So in this case, it's going to be around control and positive birth experiences. So then I provide a definition. A positive birth can be defined as approaching birth realistically, having genuine choice and feeling empowered. Once again, a piece of cited literature. And by making sure that you have a definition in place where it's applicable, it helps to provide more detail to the information which you're providing and therefore helps the reader understand your topic fully. I go on to say that, following this definition, that as such, the concept of control is central to achieving a positive birth. So here I'm emphasizing the idea, the importance of choice and control. And that's why I've used that keyword of as such to enhance the importance of this particular topic. So then I go on to giving some examples using literature to help me build upon my point. So I've highlighted here that a recent study exploring factors that influenced women's positive birth experience highlighted how by being empowered and being involved in decision making helped them achieve a positive birth. Once again, cited literature. I'm not sure whether you've noticed here, but I keep going back to the concept of control, even though I'm using slightly different words like having genuine choice, feeling empowered, being involved in decision making, control itself. So this continues to unify the sentences and developing them further, adding information to my overarching concept within this particular paragraph. So that is why I keep going back to these words that can help me enhance and emphasize what I'm trying to say. I added a bit here where I've said it has also been identified ... because in this situation I would add a few more examples from the literature. However, notice here another keyword which helps to enhance the coherence of the work, because this time I'm going to provide an alternative view to the concept of control. So I highlight that, however, for other women, by relinquishing control to their midwife with whom they had built a trusting relationship, they were able to achieve a positive birth. Once again, cited piece of work. In fact, once again, I'm emphasizing something and highlighting a particular point. A recent study has indicated that, etc., etc. Once again, I'm providing an example here to make sure that I continue to build upon the point I'm trying to make. So then finally, I provide the key point of my entire paragraph. Even though my paragraph was around positive birth experiences and control, the idea of my paragraph was that while the concept of control seems central to achieving a positive birth, the meaning of control can differ among women. So this is the key point of the study that I was trying to make, and it is presented at the bottom of my paragraph because first I wanted to present the evidence in terms of how the contrasting data highlights how control can mean something different to women. So I wanted to provide the evidence first, and then I can close off my argument because you are able to understand where I'm coming from because I've already presented the data and the information. So that is why I added the key point of this particular paragraph at the end of the paragraph. Equally, I think it could have fit nicely anywhere, to be honest. So this particular paragraph would be good for level 4, so for any first year student. As you can see, it is well structured. The point which I was trying to make has become very clear, and it is well cited and referenced throughout. If you were studying at level 5 or in second year, or you would need to add more meaning, and you need to add the significance of what this idea, which I've just presented, is. So, in terms of the concept of control and how the meaning of control can differ among women, what is the significance of this? So, that is why, if I wanted to have my work even more analytical, I might want to present a bit more evidence around these concepts, and then at the end highlight what this may suggest. So this suggests, etc., to help my work become more meaningful in terms of analysis. So to recap what we've done today, to make sure that you have a well-structured paragraph in which the point which you want to put across in that particular paragraph, you need 3 essential features. And this is to unify your sentences by linking them together to the key point of your paragraph. Whatever point you're trying to make in that paragraph, every sentence needs to be linked to it. If you are redrafting, if you're reviewing your work and you find that a particular sentence is not contributing anything to that particular paragraph, then it needs to go or be moved somewhere else. To make sure that the paragraph is well developed, each sentence should expand or defend the key point which you're trying to make. So don't just have sentences in for the sake of being in, but make sure that each sentence is providing value to what you're trying to do. Now, obviously, this is going to be dependent on what the key task of the essay is, whether it is to reflect, to appraise, to analyze, to discuss, to describe. So in that sense, how you expand on the key point is going to slightly differ. But the important thing that whatever that might be, the sentence should be providing value to the particular paragraph. And finally, making sure that your work is coherent within the paragraph itself. So each sentence must follow a logical order to ensure that whatever argument or point you're trying to put across, it is clear and well understood by using your keywords, cue words, and finally, your work needs to be coherent. So making sure within the paragraph that each sentence is following a logical order to ensure that whatever argument or point you're trying to make put across is clear for the reader to understand. So that is all that I have for you today. I hope you have found it extremely useful, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.